All right, so welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are going to talk through the 5 skills that will define the future of marketing. All right, as a little icebreaker, let's start with a poll. What skills do you think marketers will need in the AI era? And go ahead and drop that in the chat. And as you're doing that, I'll review what we are going to cover today. So we're going to talk a little bit about how AI is transforming roles. Sorry, I realized I am not advancing my slides very well. So there's the Marketing Frontier slide. There's the poll if you need the question again. And what we're going to cover today, we're jamming. All right, how AI is transforming roles, what skills to consider in the AI area. We're going to go into demos of those skills, and then we're going to have a little bit of group sharing, some Q&A, and we're going to close out. The level that I've assigned for today is beginner. So I don't think you need much AI knowledge at all to follow along, and we are glad that you are all here. All right. So I'm Melissa Reeve, and I'm the co-founder of MarketingFrontier.ai. Before I introduce myself, although that was a little bit of an introduction, Summer, turning it over to you to tell this fine group of people who you're all about.
Hi, everyone. I'm Summer. I lead operations and agency innovation for a marketing agency that's based out of Denver called Public Label. We're really known for our experiential marketing, but we also do commerce and shopper marketing. And I am there really leading the way on AI. And I love having the opportunity to bring people and skills into the AI orbit so that people can kind of rethink what they're up to and how they do their job. And I'm excited to be with you here today.
And I'm excited to have Summer here. She has just a wealth of knowledge when it comes to AI. And the demo she has for you today is just, I don't want to curse it because live demos can be a little flaky, but I'm very excited about it and really hope to see it in action. Circling back on our poll of what skills we think marketers will need, I'm just looking through the chat here. So familiarity with the AI tools, creative thinking, strategic thinking, content development, journey mapping. These are all amazing skills, and I think all of you are right. They will all be in need. We are going to cover 5 specific skills that I'm excited to share. But before we do, let's talk about how AI is transforming marketing jobs. So I think this is kind of a well-shared statistic in certain circles, but if you haven't seen it, this is the Future of Jobs report from the World Economic Forum. And you can see here that there will be some job loss. That is the red in the bottom. Those are 92 million jobs that are going to go away, that they predict will go away. The good news is that there is 170 million jobs that they think will be added. And when I think about a graph like this, I think about the advent of the calculator. And before there were the advent of the calculator, there were people that were calculating by hand, and that was their job. And this coming and going of jobs is feels like a job will be forever, but they aren't. They change all the time. You know, Summer's nodding. Summer, tell me what examples are coming into your head.
Well, yeah, I was going to go further with the abacus, right? That's how people did math is with the abacus. And now I don't think any of us would even know how to use an abacus. Yeah, I think that, innovation is a modern idea and that when we innovate, we change the way that we're doing things. And so the tasks that fall underneath the job in those 92 million jobs, those tasks are doable by AI.
I totally agree with you. You know, DevOps is another job category that just kind of exploded, right? Cloud management, DevOps management. This is a constant. So then this next chart, also from that same report, shows what skills are on the rise. So of course, naturally, AI and big data skills are on the rise. We also have networks and cybersecurity. But I think what's interesting is if you go down, you'll get that some of the skills you mentioned, empathy and active listening, are on the rise, curiosity, resilient, creative thinking, somebody mentioned that. So even at the bottom, just just in case you think, oh, I'm a marketer and my entire industry is going away, look at that. We have marketing and media skills are on the rise. So don't give up hope yet. There's all kinds of goodness out there. And then the other graph I wanted to show you was the current capacity for substituting by generative AI by skill group. So even though marketing skills are on the rise, you'll also see it here that AI can sure do a lot of marketing and media work. So our message to you today is the job market is growing for those who know AI in marketing and media. And because if you know how to apply marketing and media, then you will be part of that group of marketers that is growing. So I'm glad you're here learning along with all of us. And we're excited to share the skills we feel are needed in the AI era. And I chose these skills because I thought they were some of the lesser known skills. You know, you look at the chart that was just a couple of slides back, and these are some of the things that I think of when thinking about AI, but we kind of chose some of the lesser ones, and then we're going to go into those for you. All right. Summer, before we move on, any thoughts, any comments?
Oh, I love what you're presenting so far. I would just say that the empathy thing is very interesting. I do think that as somebody who loves AI and wants to work with AI all the time, I've started to realize I have to be a little bit more thoughtful about how I introduce the
Mm.
technology because a lot of people do feel scared or like, oh, I don't want to learn another thing. I don't have time to learn another thing. And so that empathy tool has actually been more important than any other skill that I have so that I can bring people along with me instead of the distaste of like being forced to do something they don't want to do.
Thank you for bringing that up because you're right. I'm so all in on AI. I forget that it is scary and there is a lot. And I have to bring myself back to those first days when I was like, oh my gosh, how do you even figure out heads or tails from this environment? Yeah, thank you for bringing that into the conversation. All right, so the skills that we have identified and we'll talk about here today. The first one, non-tech related process optimization. So when you think about, and we're going to dive into this, but when you think about process optimization, we're not here to try and automate processes. We're going to dive into that. Summer, do you want to talk about coding basics?
Yeah, I mean the headline is you don't need to learn how to code. Don't send your kids to coding camp. That era is done. You can code in English or French or Italian.
Yeah, it's amazing. And that's one of the exciting demos we're going to do. Data fluency. I feel like data is an important part of knowing AI. Summer, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, it's really all about knowing what to ask the AI about the data rather than having to sift through the data and make sense of it. So now it's about asking and talking to the data directly.
Right. AI-driven experimentation, we're going to dive into this. And I like to say that we're moving as marketers from A/B testing to A to infinity testing. Like our ability to test hundreds, thousands, millions of combination just been activated. And so what does that do to our organizational dynamics? What does that do to, and we're going to talk about this, the battle of opinions. How is our world going to change? All right. Augmented decision making, our last one. Summer, what are your thoughts about this?
Oh, I use it all the time. I mean, if I'm about to write an email to the CEO of the company, I run it through AI first and I give them information on who he is, where he comes from, how he thinks. And then I
Mm,
realize, oh, I should not write the email that way. I should come up with a solution before I complain about something. So
yeah,
that's been really helpful for me in that context.
I love that. It comes up with things that I wouldn't have even thought of. And I'm like, oh, you're brilliant, AI. Thank you. Thank you for your brilliance. All right, let's dive into process optimization. I am a process geek. I love process mapping. If you don't know what process mapping is, ask AI. And it's because this is a skill that I think every marketer will need. So let's just take a look. Who here on the call, feel free to drop it in the chat, is familiar with either process mapping or processes like Agile and Lean, where you have process time and lead time. And I won't call on you, I'm just kind of interested. So what this slide shows is that you have the amount of time it takes to, love it, Debbie, amount of time it takes to actually do the task. So here we're looking at a little blog post. And first you need your content strategy. Okay, your creative brief is going to take 4 hours. It's going to take 8 hours to write it. Wow, look at how AI can help there. 6 hours to create images. Wow, look at how AI can help there. It's going to take 1 hour to review. And then we go through a couple of revision cycles, and then we're going to publish. But I want you to tune in to the blue as well, because that's your wait states. And so you can see that when we use AI, let's just say that we use AI to write, we've gained some of that 8 hours back, but we still have a 96-hour wait state. And so if we don't optimize our processes and figure out why do we have these giant wait states and why do we have these giant handoffs, that we're not really going to gain that much in efficiency. Who cares if you can create 400 blog posts if they all get stuck in legal? And so I feel like this notion of process mapping is so critical when we talk about AI. How can we break down those wait states? How can we create better flow? How can we minimize handoffs and delays? So we look at this old way of doing things where we had handoffs between copy and creative and product marketing and Marcom, and AI tends to condense that because maybe one person can create the copy and the graphics. Maybe AI can deploy it automatically. Maybe we can create AI guardrails to do reviews. Summer, what are your thoughts?
Oh, I love this image. Yeah, I'm experiencing this right now as we're starting to test very specific use cases, and the silos have been a problem up until recently. But now that we're kind of having, what's interesting is that there was no process before AI. We said there was a process, but once we went to look at auditing the process, we realized the process was messed up and nobody agreed that we were doing it a certain way. So the evolution of bringing on the AI process allowed us to all agree on something because we needed to build it. It wasn't us doing it. We're now working with these GPTs and these automations, and so we can't fake it till we make it in that sense anymore. So the
Mhm.
AI has actually enforced the process.
That's right. Yeah, the AI enforces the process. And, we need to, like I was saying, we need to optimize processes first. Because if we do this with our cross-functional teams, but again, we can also think about a point in time in the future where AI might serve as a content strategist, go ahead and draft some copy. You've got a custom GPT going. They're going to draft the copy. You can create a prompt to draft an image. Okay, so it can review it from a UX perspective. These production cycles are going to be massively condensed. And for anyone who feels like my job is my ID, I'm a graphic designer, we still need graphic designers to create prompts. We still need graphic designers to evaluate what AI is producing. We still need graphic designers to create amazing contextual environments that don't feel like AI.
Can I add to that?
Yeah.
Think with the graphic designer example, I wouldn't be able to judge the output. Only the graphic designer, like you said, would be able to really evaluate if the output is good enough or what the client is looking for. And then
Mhm.
at our company, we have the art director, for example, building out the infrastructure of the AI tool that her team is using so that it thinks like her, not just like a general graphic designer, but she has very specific opinions about font and text and color usage. And so she's
Mhm.
informed the tool that we're using with her unique point of view around art direction.
Mhm. I love that example, and thanks for raising it. So this is our first skill. So we encourage all marketers to learn how to process map. Go ahead and have a little chat with AI on how to do process mapping. You can use very simple tools like Lucidchart or Miro, um, and audit your processes before automating them. So we've got Ashley, who's in the audience, who does Lean. I noticed that George, or who does Lean and Agile. I noticed George has joined us. He's from over in the Netherlands, and he, I know, is an Agile expert. So it's all about eliminating waste in your processes, really examining those wait states. And while this may not be super relevant right now, I think it will only rise in importance in the future. All right, you have heard me talk over to Summer to talk about coding. And I'm going to
Yeah,
stop sharing my screen so that you can share yours.
awesome. Okay, looking for that share. There it is. And I'm on desktop 3. Okay, here we are. I'm going to put you guys there so I can see you, but I might turn my head over there. So coding basics. So what is coding? I think we kind of think we know, but when it comes down to it, I really needed to actually look up the definition, right? So coding is the process of giving instructions to a computer to perform a task. And put simply, coding is the process of really like giving it it's using a coding language, but of course now anyone can build in the age of AI. What's really exciting is that I can build in the age of AI and I'm not a coder. So we're going to do a demo. What I want to do is I want to quickly go into the demo, set it up, let it bake in the oven, and then we'll come back and see what turned out when the timer goes off. So Lovable is a platform that I'm using a lot. I've created all of these different um, web applications below. And so I, of course, went to ChatGPT for a few different ideas of what we could demo. So I thought maybe an interactive marketing poll or a customer testimonial showcase. Let's do that. Um, so we'll take that. Now, you could get a little bit more complex, but for the sake of just showing you how this all works, I put in create a simple web application marketers can use to showcase customer testimonials with images, quotes, and social proof. So I'm going to hit go. And it's going to start coding for me. And based on my context and my sentiment, it's going to start building it. Now, if I were really building this to use it, I would give it my brand guidelines. I'd probably give it more detail, but I just wanted to give you a sense of what that looks like. So the coding is happening here on the right, and the agent is talking to me here on the left. He says he's excited to build a minimalist yet elegant testimonial showcase. So we'll continue with the coding basics, but we'll get to come back. So basically, we used to have to communicate in a language that was what a machine could understand, right? So we talked in Python, the language of AI data science, JavaScript, SQL, HTML. But now we can talk in English. I mean, that's the most exciting part. So like I said, Python is the language of AI and data science. And so that's what Lovable is using. It's actually using both Python and SQL. JavaScript is the language of the web. SQL is the language of data. And then, of course, we all know HTML and CSS is the foundation of the web. But I wanted to remind you that now English and French and Hindi and Japanese are all coding languages, because if you can speak those languages, then you can speak to an AI tool that can build something for you using code. This was my attempt with Midjourney to make a French computer.
I love it.
A little beret and some bread, and they're looking up cheese. So basically, I live in the world of low code, no code, vibe code. So no code is like drag and dropping. And you might know it like with Wix. That's kind of like a no code. Low code is the Lovable platform. Now, I'm not using code, but a coder can go in there and start to augment and shift some of the code. So I know a lot of developers that are using Lovable all the time now. And then vibe code is where AI does the heavy lifting. You describe what you want and it builds it. So the Replit app could fall under both low code and vibe code. And I know a lot of developers are basically taking walks now and talking into their machines while they're on their phone instead of sitting at the computer. It's like really changing the developer's lifestyle, right? We have this image of a developer in like a cave somewhere with headphones on. Now they're out in the world continuing to code with their English language. So just some examples. We may all know Zapier and Webflow, Bubble, Airtable. If you haven't been on those platforms, I encourage you to go on there. They're all AI infused at this point. Lovable is my new favorite tool, but I also love Replit, Make.com, and Retool. And then when it comes to vibe coding, there's a really great app called Cursor. And then even OpenAI Code Interpreter can help you. So those are just a few examples. But let's go back and see what happened here. So it looks like we had an unsuccessful build. So I have never actually experienced this before. So I'm going to say, can you fix it? The error, question mark. Okay, I'll fix the TypeScript errors in your files. The main issue appears to be with some JSX syntax. Okay, good luck with that. I'm going to continue with my work. Data fluency. So data fluency is the foundation of AI-driven marketing. And you know what, before I continue, Melissa, do you have anything that you'd like to say about coding basics, coding fluency, coding in general?
Yeah, I mean, I think I love everything that you're doing. Two things. One is on the vibe code. How I first learned about it was through a video, and it was from one of the Tesla software engineers working on automation. And he talks about like literally setting the vibe. He's got maybe some music going, and he's like, I'm just talking to the computer and I'm envisioning like what I want it to be doing. And you know, you saw what happened when Summer tried it and there was an error. That's today, and that's like the worst we're gonna get. When I saw this demoed in Summer, I don't know if you want to try it. They copied and pasted the error message into the chat
Yes.
for them to fix it. Is that what you
Yeah,
just did?
I usually do that, but it's telling me just click this and then
Oh, okay.
which is really cool. I'll keep
Yeah.
it for a little while just so you can see how it's all working. It says it's going to fix the syntax errors.
So I feel like the second part of this um, is really a communication piece. That the more we as marketers know about code and how code works, and we get exposure to tools like this and we experiment it, the more we're going to be able to talk with teams, more we're going to be able to communicate with other groups that are using AI. So in a way, code, whether it's low code or vibe code or no code or some code, is the language of the future.
That's right. That's right. So we'll come back and look at this in a bit. But I thought we could just continue on with demo alert, data fluency. So data is really the backbone of how AI is so powerful. If you have data, then you can really play a big game in AI. When we think about ChatGPT, like their OpenAI is a really well-known company, but it's pretty new. What's interesting about the other LLMs, like Google's Gemini, Google has so much data. And that's really the game. So it'll be interesting to see like what becomes the LLM of choice in the future. I know at my company, we have all the data of every campaign we've ever done. But how
Mm.
do we leverage that, right? It's there somewhere. But what is data fluency? So it's the ability to effectively interpret, communicate, and apply data-driven insights. So it's one thing to have it, but you have to know, you have to understand it. You have to effectively communicate with and through it. So in today's marketing landscape, like the data fluency can enable these three critical things. I mean, there's so much more, but I think these are the three critical things that I can see today. So, Melissa, you mentioned it a little bit, like A/B testing or A to infinity testing could also be personalization at scale. They're really the same thing. So, in the future, and I'm talking about in a couple weeks or months, and it might even be happening now. I don't have an example, but I might go on a website and see a completely different visual than what my spouse might see or my child might see. We're calling the same browser, we're calling the same website, but we're each being delivered different pieces of creative that resonates differently with us, right?
Mhm.
So the data allows that through the audience segmentation. So the other piece is what we also talked about earlier, operational efficiency. So automating processes and freeing up resources. So I know at my agency, what's really exciting is the creative team used to have to go, 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 right? Every hour was resourced. Now, because they're working with AI, they actually have more time to think strategically about their work rather than just executing, executing, executing. That's the hustle of agency life. And so in some ways, I think that there's like some negative things about AI with the agency world, but at the same time, we can do so much more now with the people that we have. And then confident decision making. So I think that was another thing that you mentioned was like the augmented decisions that we'll talk about later, but it's kind of the same thing, which is you now have this data so that you can make decisions not just from your gut. And of course, marketers have been using data for a long time, but the way that we can talk to the data has completely changed.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, the bar is raised on all three of those things, right?
Agreed.
Yeah.
Um, so the path to data fluency. Um, for some reason, I don't have my pyramid here, but oh well. Um, so it starts really from the foundation of the organization. So that's why I wanted that pyramid. So imagine there's a pyramid or a triangle around, starting at the bottom with organization. So we have to structure the teams for the data-driven decision making, right? Then on top of that, we need to make sure that we have the infrastructure so that we have the reliable data collection and that we're doing it with governance and everybody who needs to have access has access, but everybody who should not does not. And then on top of that, we need to look at the people, right? So upskilling the teams to be able to interpret and apply data and actually know what questions to ask of the data. Then we go to the tools. So what tools are we using, right? So you can build your own proprietary tools. And then there's a lot of tools out in the marketplace that have AI infused that are specific to the industry. And then, of course, the final piece would be process, right? So we're building that process optimization on top of the foundation of organization, infrastructure, the people, and the tools. Because data fluency isn't just about numbers. It's going to require all of this infrastructure, all of these people, all these, there's my map, there's my pyramid. I don't know. Oh well,
It was
here
a
it is.
build.
Well, really, what's important is to understand that you can go from this current state of data reactive, where you're just reacting and trying to figure out how to use your data, to a place of data fluency, where every marketer on your team not only has access to apply the data insights, but understands what questions they could potentially ask. And so if you think about how you would want to progress from a data reactive state to a data fluent state, really these would be the steps, right? So you have to build a data culture leadership with leadership buying in, because it's going to take work to structure that data and to make sure that data is able to be used in an effective way, right? You have to structure that data. And then step two would be standardizing the tools that you're using. So are you using a CRM? Are you using a specific analytics tool? What dashboards do you need to see? What metrics do you and your team need to see and understand? And then going into making sure that the data is accessible and actionable. So again, that reporting and the dashboards. And then finally, making sure that you're constantly learning and updating and maintaining those tools and those systems, because things are changing on such a regular basis. So I just want to
So,
stop. Yeah.
oh, well, I was about to say, before you go into the question, I have a question for you,
Okay.
which is if I'm a marketer, which I am, and data isn't my strong suit, which it isn't, how how do I learn about data? Like, where can I go to learn about data so that I
Okay.
can
So
do these things?
yeah, I mean, really, you can work with ChatGPT to understand what data you have. So I have a Teams license and I have so everything I can run through is proprietary data I can run through without training the model. So I literally, like, for example, we do 10,000 events for Mo at Hennessy, and I'll literally take the recaps of all those 10,000 events, I'll put it through, and I'll ask the AI, this is a huge piece of data. I need to understand these 5 things, but you tell me what insights that you're seeing. So that's
Mm,
an early way for a beginner to start playing with data. Like even if, for example, like a personal use case, I noticed my Verizon bill went up. So I took all of the PDFs for the year, including the month that it went up, and I put it into ChatGPT and I asked, help me understand why the bill went up. Can you make a
mm,
full report of the whole year? And tell me things about this data that I don't understand. It started
Mhm.
to point out that I have all these like routers that I've been paying for that
Mhm.
apparently I didn't like return them on time, and there was this big fee, right? It's silly, but now that we can talk to the data, that's going to be a game changer. And so that's really the way that I would suggest this group starts. There's
Mhm.
really high-end tools like where you can start using SQL. But I would say that you would need structured data. And what I mean by structured data is that you need to make sure that the headers and the columns and the pieces of information you're looking for match the information requests and the dashboards and the
Mhm.
reporting metrics themselves.
Yeah.
I would really just start with using ChatGPT and simple AI tools. And if you've not used data before, I would start with a personal use case.
Yeah. I love all of that. And I I run into to use cases and people who have use cases. Um, and we don't even, what am I trying to say here? I'm trying to say amen to using ChatGPT to help you learn. And I'm trying to set up the use case, which is, let's just say that you're in Tableau and you want to create this dashboard, but you don't know how.
Hmm.
So you can go to ChatGPT and say, how do I create this dashboard in Tableau, which is a resource that we've never had before. You can potentially, there's potentially even a bot in Tableau. I haven't been in there in a hot minute, where you could ask it to automatically create that dashboard.
Yes, yes. A lot of those tools like Tableau have it. I don't know how many people here are Tableau users, but certainly it's AI infused at this point. And what I do a lot, I was doing this with HubSpot earlier. I take my phone and I have ChatGPT and I turn on the camera and I say, you see that button over there? I can't get that to click. Why? And then it's like, oh, because you're on the preview mode. Oh,
Oh,
okay.
no kidding.
So it's like having somebody over your shoulder that's kind of showing you what to do and pointing to the right button to press.
Hmm.
Really silly, but what a game changer.
Yeah, what a game changer. All right,
Let's
let's
check
keep going.
out, let's check out what's going out here. I noticed that they were still having a problem. So I'm actually going to go to the dashboard and I'm just going to show you a few things that I've built. I ran into a friend at a bar actually, and I was working on my computer and I was trying to explain to her what this can do. And I'm like, well, what are you into? And she's like, I'm into travel and people dying. And I'm like, what? What is wrong with you? But okay. So I put a website for bucket list travelers to look up the best places to travel when you know you're going to die soon. And literally, we were drinking at a bar when I did this. But now, I mean, it really works. So it became a website. I sent it to her, and she's like, "Oh my God, my husband thinks I have to start this business now." So find your journey. And it made up all the copy, experience
Mm.
Paris in comfort, safari specialized care, Santorini sunrise, view all destinations. And then what was really cool, hold on, was oh, stories that inspire. So they had real stories of people
Mm.
um, finding peace in the mountains of Peru and talking about their terminal diagnosis. I mean, it was pretty wild. And again, just to be very clear, this is the prompt that I put in. It's too
Mm.
bad. I had a feeling as I was going to bed last night that this demo was not going to work. It's just my, just nervous to do that. But I just want you to see some successful examples. The
Hmm.
other thing I did last night as I was testing this out was a flash sale website. And so then I just added this image and it basically is just counting down to the flash sale. So just to
Hmm.
illustrate that if you can come up with something, you can build it. And I would just recommend playing. There's a lot of these tools you don't even have to sign up or pay any money for. So that's just a suggestion, but I know we're, on a time frame. So I just want to keep going, but you can all reach out to me if you want to play with AI. I'm happy to do that. What's one marketing decision that you've made recently that could have been better with data? That is a question I have for you. So if you want to think back, what's one marketing decision or maybe even a personal decision that you made that could have been better if you had the right data? So maybe it was a campaign budget or an email subject line or choosing what audience to target. There's no wrong answer, but if you want to play along and put in the chat, that might be fun. And this is my last slide for data fluency and my last slide really. So just want to bring it all together and help you understand that first you have to get the data and it needs to be good data and structured data. And that means you're making sure that you're tracking the right things. Then you need to interpret the data because numbers alone don't tell a story. And then that communication piece of how do you communicate what the data is telling you? If no one understands it, then it's kind of useless, right? And then finally, the most important step is applying the data, because the data is only valuable if it drives an action. So marketers who are mastering the data fluency are the ones who are going to stand out. I think in this AI era, I know that I'm doing my best to become data fluent. So join me in the data fluency game.
Love it. Thanks so much, Summer. So you guys have been listening to us talk for a long time, and I'm a big fan of learning from each other. And so there's two things that I want to ask the audience. And go ahead and you're welcome to come off mute or just drop it in the chat, depending on what's applicable for you. The first is how are you learning about AI? And I think a forum like this is great for exchanging notes. Like we're all learning together. Even though Summer and I are hosting this event, we're on our own learning curve. And so go ahead and drop in the chat if there is a resource that you found that you really love. One I'm going to mention is called Automations by Jack. And I came to it through the Marketing AI Forum, and I'm going to give them a shout out. In fact, Debbie, do you want to come off mute? I don't know where you're at in your day, but if you want to come off mute and chat about the Marketing AI Forum for just a second, that'd be great.
Sure, yeah. And Automations by Jack is one of the groups that AI Marketing Forum really pushes to, because there's so much overlap there. But the AI Marketing Forum gives us a place to have conversations instead of being deluged with information about AI. You can put your specific questions into the community. It's a smaller community. We've got about 750 people in there, but it's just a way to, bring the fire hose down to what I, describe as the drinking fountain when it comes to your own learning journey about AI, because everyone has a different way of doing it, a different need, different objectives, different pace, different pressures from the outside. Some are learning AI on top of their jobs, while others are learning AI while they're doing their jobs, as part of their jobs. So everybody has to ingest all of this information in a different way at a different pace. And the AI Marketing Forum is an online community that makes it a little easier to customize your own learning journey.
Wonderful. Why don't you, if you would be so kind to drop that URL in the chat.
Oh, I will. Thank you.
And everyone on the call is welcome to join that. Summer, it looks like you got your demo to work.
Just in time.
You want to show it?
Sure,
I'd love to see
absolutely.
it.
Obviously we didn't put a lot of energy into the prompt itself, but yes, it ended up working out. So this is the page where I'm coding, and then I can press this button right up here and it creates a preview. So I was just excited that there was a home, there was an about, see examples, view examples. It's pretty interesting how it kind of just figures it out on its own. It just makes a lot of assumptions if you don't give it, the full story of what you're doing. But I really recommend folks play with this. And again, Replit is also a great app for this kind of work.
Wonderful. And we had another question in the chat, and it was talking about data privacy. And I know that you deal with that a lot. So when you are at the agency and you're trying to analyze data like those 10,000 events, how are you protecting your data?
Yeah, so only a very few people have access to that data, and we actually have to sign NDAs directly with the client for that data. And then we only use ChatGPT at our company. We don't have access I have access personally to other things, but I would never put proprietary information through anything but my public label Teams account. In terms of data privacy, yeah, I mean, when you're working with it internally, you have to be very careful. So we always have on-premise servers. We don't have much of our data in the cloud these days. So I think that's a big part of it.
And so you must have the enterprise version of ChatGPT.
That's right.
Yeah. So just to be clear, not all versions of ChatGPT are equal. The enterprise version is one where your data is protected. It is firewalled off. It is just that enterprise's instance. In the paid version, you can turn off your data sharing preferences. They're probably still going to be stored somewhere. But it is saying that I don't want this data to train. And so I do feel comfortable sharing some of that information with that turned off. And then the free version, I don't know that that button is active. So you really have to understand what you're getting into. If you really want help with that, you can take the terms and conditions of your AI agent and ask them to read it and help you understand their data privacy parameters. It is an evolving landscape. So what was true yesterday is not necessarily true today and tomorrow.
So true. Because at the end of the day, let's be honest, all of the data that these LLMs were trained on, that data was supposed to be private.
That's right. Yeah.
It's in the LLM.
So we have a couple suggestions for places to learn. In the interest of time, I want to keep going on the content, but check the chat for a couple resources. All right, I'll talk about AI-driven experiments. I do think that this is a skill that people will need in the future. And again, we talked about A to infinity testing. I like to say start with the end in mind. So, this is all about forming a hypothesis. So what action are we trying to cause? How will we know that this has happened? And how will we know if it has succeeded? I feel like marketers need to get much more disciplined around their experiments. We say like, oh, well, we're trying to do an A/B test on the color of this button. And 9 times out of 10 in my experience, what that leads to is like, oh, well, 44% wanted the orange button and 48% wanted the blue. Like, okay, that's fair, blue wins, but oftentimes it's so close, it's not very distinguishable. And so without understanding and forming well-formed hypotheses, it's sometimes hard to run experiments. So this is the structure for a well-formed hypothesis. What do you believe? How will you know it's true? And more importantly, how will you know it's false? So if your blue-orange experiment is only a percentage point apart and you haven't specified that in advance, you may not know what has won. And of course, an experimental mindset. So this is reminding us that there's more than one way of doing things, keeps us open to learning. And quite frankly, it's more fun, but it does require less ego. So we're going to talk about the battle of opinions, but I feel like in marketing, we are pretty entrenched in highest paid person's opinions. And and the battle of opinions. Summer, what would you like to add?
Sorry, I said that out loud. I'm like, oh God, this is so true. I
It's so
think
true.
I do think though that AI is gonna shift that a bit because like I said, in my agency, there's an SVP and it's like, well, I'm an SVP and it's like, okay, but I'm a director and I now kind of am doing most of the meaningful work using AI. So I do think that it's gonna be more like the riches go to the person who's willing to fight through the friction the most.
Yeah, for sure. All right, we've got one more skill, augmented decision making. And I feel like what I'd like to say here is that jobs are made out of processes, tasks, and decisions. So those three things. And so when we talk about jobs going away, I want to ask you which part of the job? Yes, some of those tasks will be automated. Some tasks will never be ripe for automation. So factory automation has been around for a long time. Only 1% of the world's factories are fully automated. And according to a study by McKinsey, 34% of the tasks aren't ripe for automation. The same thing is going to be happening in our worlds. So we need to look at what tasks need to be automated, what parts of processes can be automated, and then this last part, which is what parts of decisions can be automated. So our current state, we've been talking about this the whole hour. What is the battle of opinions? And I want you, if there's one thing you can take away from today, it's this notion that our decision making right now is severely limited. It's limited by who's in the room. It's limited by the amount of time we spend analyzing information. It's limited by the amount of information that we have access to. And it's limited because it's severely biased by who's in the right opinions. And although we're concerned about AI bias, I think it's important for us to recognize humans are pretty biased too. If you have additional limitations to our decision making, feel free to drop them in the chat. But I just really want to emphasize how comfortable we've gotten with the limited nature of our current decision making. So how AI can help, I know tons of you are already doing generating AI-driven ideas, tools like Jasper. I don't know that we're doing the second one, which is analyzing from all angles. There's so much more we could be doing around building scenarios. There's a free tool called Storm by Stanford. And in that, it's a deep research tool like Google Deep Research, another great tool to explore if you haven't. What you can do with Storm is you can generate different personas so that you could take this copy, let's say it's your marketing copy, and you could say, okay, my customer has these characteristics. Analyze it from the point of view of that customer. Customer B has different characteristics. Analyze this copy from the point of view of that customer. My competitors have these characteristics. Help me analyze this from the point of view of my competition. That's the kind of deep analysis that AI is going to help us with in the future. Summer, you've probably been doing some of this. What would you like to add?
Yeah, we have a few automations for decisions around freelancer approvals. And they're doing great. I think we're a little bit nervous and just kind of watching them as they happen. I think really what we're trying to do as a company is just get set up for when we are forced to use AI to keep up with competition. I think right now we're just laying the groundwork and making sure that we're not going too fast, that we're leaving folks behind, but we're going fast enough that the clients that we're working with are excited about the innovation and excited about potentially shifting some of the capabilities that we have at the agency to not only help them with the work of marketing, but help them as an infrastructure, their own AI infrastructure. So I think these 5 skills are the right skills. It's very easy to say like prompt engineering, but the truth is the AI can do that for you now. The AI is actually not taking your prompt. They're rewriting it anyway. So I really like that these are true skills that you need to start working on now. Because of course, if we go outside into the real world and you talk to the guy that's power washing my cement right now, he hasn't used AI. A lot of people haven't used AI. My boss says he'll get into it soon, just tomorrow or next week, right? So like we're just being in this meeting, we're ahead of the game.
Yeah, amen. I love it. This last part is using AI in meetings, and I'm not talking about summarizing your meeting notes. I am talking about real time, getting all the views in the room together, pros, cons analysis. And we did this in action. Debbie, I don't know if you're comfortable if I put you on the spot. This is the Women in AI meeting, and I believe you were there.
Yeah, I'm happy to be put on the spot. I have to tell you, I was a little deer in the headlights during that meeting. There was a lot going on, so I had to sort of isolate things in my own mind. That's just my style. And at first, I thought I was going to maybe like not get anything out of it. But when we all put our information into your data collection, I forget what system you were using.
We used
And
Menti and Google Forms.
there
So we
we
were
go. Yeah.
collecting
So you
data
were,
that way.
yeah, in real time, collecting our opinions, collecting our ideas, and then compiling them and analyzing them, and then showing to the whole group. And I think there were 60 people there that night, and showing to the whole group, what was most important to the group, and the different focus that each group had. And you did a really good job of dividing us up into 4 groups anyway, based on our experience levels. Anyway, it was all very cool. It was in real time. And even if I wasn't able to absorb it all at the moment, just experiencing how you used AI in a group that big, that many of us were not prepared. I didn't do the survey in advance. I apologize. But anyway, it was really, really effective. And I came home with all kinds of notes and ideas and enthusiasm and energy.
Thanks for that, Debbie. I feel like in these larger meetings, there's really only enough airtime for a few people to. So what we did in this meeting is we leveled the playing field. Everybody was able to input their thoughts and opinion. They were speaking, just speak into your phone and tell us your thoughts and opinion. Everybody gets to speak at once. All of a sudden, AI took all that input and was able to analyze it and do trend analysis on it on the fly. That's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about AI augmented decision making. All right, I moved this to the middle because we need a little break. If you have more learning resources you can share, drop those in the chat. We've been group sharing all along, so thank you for that. Thank you for showing up. We have 2 more upcoming events that are on the schedule. We try and meet once a month. So the next one is really taking a look at those workflows and how do you integrate AI with those workflows? How do you create AI-driven workflows? Single task, but more tasks strung together. And then operationalizing AI in marketing. Okay, that is what Summer is doing. Maybe we'll bring her back, which is how do you then make it your standard operating procedure? How do you really integrate that? So those are upcoming. Summer, why don't you tell us a little bit about Public Label?
Yeah, this is our team. Melissa, you were so sweet. You're like, you can ask for anything. And I do a lot of things, but I really am championing my agency. We're a group of individuals that have been in marketing for a long time. This is the leadership team. We're all really passionate about what we're doing. And so if you wanted to go on Public Label's LinkedIn, there's a QR code and just comment. There was a post today that used this image. If you wanted to comment and say that you enjoyed this webinar or just anything you could do to give some love to Public Label, because giving love to Public Label is giving love to me.
Awesome. That's so great. And I feel like I'm on the infomercial. That's not all. We have more AI goodness. Go to MarketingFrontier.ai. We put out a podcast. I am migrating with a website, so there hasn't been one in a couple of weeks, but it is all AI generated on topics that are important to marketers. There's also a free 5 days to high impact use case email course. So you get an email a day every day, and both of these are no cost. Yeah, keep in touch. We loved hosting you today. Thank you so much for spending an hour with us. Hope you learned a couple of things and come back anytime. Any closing thoughts, Summer?
I'm just excited. If you want to reach out to me, Melissa's the person to go to for bringing, AI into your organization. But if you just want to be like, show me lovable again, I'm happy to do that. Reach out to me on LinkedIn.
Great. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a wonderful day.